It's no secret that SEGA Rally on the Saturn is my favourite game of all time. If you've followed myself or Dan for long enough and listened to the podcast, you'll have heard us wax lyrically about how much we love this port that showed everyone what the Saturn was truly capable of and shut up the naysayers in the process. On this episode, we're going to tell you 10 things that we love about SEGA Rally Championship on the SEGA Saturn. The controls and handling. SEGA CS and AM3 built SEGA Rally on the Saturn from the ground up and without the use of the SEGA graphics library. One of the team's biggest challenges, aside from the obvious task of porting one of the Model 2's finest coin-ops to the Saturn, was to nail the handling, and didn't they just? Somehow the CS team was able to create one of the best handling arcade racers ever made, and it could make you feel the difference between being on tarmac, dirt or mud. Without any form of sensory input on the controller, the player can instinctively tell which surface they're on with their thumb on the top of a standard Saturn D-pad, and mastering these subtle changes to the handling is the key to faster lap times. The course design. SEGA Rally officially offers 4 tracks: Desert, Mountain, Forest and the bonus track Lakeside, accessed if you finish Championship mode in first place on any difficulty. I've seen some retro content creators who retrospectively review SEGA Rally bemoan the lack of tracks and even lament the checkpoint system. However, what you need to understand about SEGA Rally is that the game isn't about track position, it's about time, and the rival cars merely act as markers to indicate if you're on course to beat your best time. All 3 tracks offer something different. Desert, with its dirt roads and muddy over jumps, is devilishly simple, with certain rivals able to be used for cheeky speed boosts at key moments. A sharp chicane and a long winding right hand turn finish this track off, and your choice of driving lane are key on both if you're to succeed. Forest, my favourite track, features several switches between dirt and tarmac, with a tricky mountain dirt road that has 2 hairpins and narrow winding roads. The tunnel midway through the course offers some visual eye candy, and when playing the game purely to beat your best time, it's often faster to drop to third gear and use the wall to bounce around the main hairpin instead of navigating it properly. Mountain is the most challenging course of the 3 stock tracks, held entirely on tarmac and home to the most challenging hairpin right in the game. The winding narrow road through the town midway through the course is key to a fast lap, with the finish line beyond 2 easier final hairpins. Lakeside, the bonus course, is the hardest in the game, utilising all terrains and filled with narrow winding turns and multiple hairpins. You can easily find yourself bouncing off the seemingly solid grass embankments or wooden fences along the side of the track. Finish this in first place, however, and the Lancia Stratos is yours. The cars. There are only 2 cars in SEGA Rally, 3 if you include the unlockable and turbo-powered Lancia Stratos, but both have their pros and cons. The Toyota Celica is the larger of the 2, but more powerful and somewhat looser in its handling. The Lancia Delta, on the other hand, is a more compact car with superior grip, but it does feel denser and heavier in its handling. The Lancia Stratos, essentially a cheap car, is far harder to handle and is much faster than either the Celica or the Delta. Personally, I prefer the Celica and use markings on the car as reference points on certain turns in the game, but I'd always recommend newcomers to the game try both and see which one suits your style of driving. The quality of the port. It can't be understated what an impact SEGA Rally made. Sure, we'd seen features and screenshots in SEGA Saturn magazine, but it wasn't until the bootleg sampler demo that we'd get to see the game in action, and it did not disappoint. The Saturn sings with SEGA Rally, showing that not only could the system do 3D games, but that it could handle Model 2 ports when in the right hands. SEGA Rally launched in Japan and the USA in late 1995 and in January of 1996 in Europe. I vividly remember to this day my uncle buying me the game in Beattie's in Glasgow city centre, finally graduating from the school of bootleg sampler and getting to experience the full game in all its glory. It showed what the Saturn was capable of. SEGA Rally was part of the Saturn's golden trifecta, affectionately referred to as simply the Big 3. Virtua Fighter 2 and Virtua Cop completed the lineup. All 3 games proved the Saturn's doubters wrong, even if they somehow inexplicably failed to woo the average PlayStation consumer. Again, many newcomers to the game and retro scene in general lament the lack of content in the port, saying it only has 3 tracks and only has 2 cars. But if you fully appreciate SEGA Rally on the Saturn, you have to put yourself in the shoes of a 1995-96 SEGA gamer. This was a game we had only seen in the arcades, a game we never thought we'd get to see in the home. Only 4 years before this, the best we had was the likes of 1991's Lotus Turbo Challenge 2 on the Amiga. SEGA Rally was a monumental step up from this. It was truly mind-blowing, and while many bring up Gran Turismo as the standard bearer for 5th gen racing games, it didn't come to the PlayStation until late 97 in Japan and the summer of 98 in the West, 2 years after SEGA Rally's respective regional launches. Its addictive nature. As mentioned before, SEGA Rally isn't about the position you finish in, it's about time. And once you understand this, the game comes into its own as one of the most addictive arcade racers ever made. I've lost count of the hours I've spent trying to beat my best time, and the sense of achievement when you do is quite something. It's a game that never feels unfair and never feels like it cheated you. Even when you're cursing it to the heavens and hitting restart for the 10th time, it never makes you want to turn it off in disgust. I've seen newcomers to the game criticise the checkpoint system, but the simple fact is that once you get to grips with the handling and the track layout, the checkpoints simply become irrelevant. The music. The Saturn version of SEGA Rally is infamous for its soundtrack. Taking advantage of the system's CD capabilities, the entire soundtrack was redone and it's nothing short of spectacular. The Saturn tracks would be featured on the album Ignition, arranged and produced by guitarist Takayuki Hijikata and composed by the legendary Takenobu Mitsuyoshi. From the second the announcer counts you in, the thumping intro beats and guitar riffs of Condition Reflex set the tone and get the adrenaline pumping. Forest tracks oddly titled Desert Land and mountain stages Getting Muddy round off the trilogy of stock tracks with the mighty Ignition backing the action on Lakeside. While Condition Reflex is my favourite track from the game and one of my favourite pieces of SEGA music ever, Ignition holds a special place in my heart due to the bootleg sampler disc. I was so enamoured with the song that I would play it over and over in my CD player, something that I would do with the full game too. Its price. This may seem a strange and obvious one, but given the current trend in retro gaming where prices are on the up and up, with the likes of Sonic R and Panzer Dragoon going for upwards of £40 each dependent on condition, it's pleasing that one of the Saturn's best experiences remains cheap and easily accessible, with copies starting at a remarkably cheap £4. The zen of racing. It's hard to describe, but if you're really good at a racing game, perhaps you can relate. On SEGA Rally, when it all just clicks, it's near perfection. As you glide each turn, hug each corner, take each hairpin and pass every car, you can feel the car almost bend to your will. It's a feeling like nothing in gaming. You become one with the car. Every tap of the D-pad feels natural and the car genuinely feels like an extension of you. A perfect run on SEGA Rally, keeping the car at its top speed and taking every turn is absolutely priceless, and I urge every gamer, retro or otherwise, to take the time to master the game and to experience it. Its legacy. SEGA Rally is often a go-to for new Saturn owners. Its reputation precedes it, and rightly so. Several friends in our community have come to love the game, having only played it for the first time recently. A friend of mine said the game was so good his boy wouldn't stop playing it, calling it the ultimate advert for gameplay over graphics. Another said it was the best racing game they'd ever played, putting hours upon end in it just to compete in Sharkabite's Twitter community time trials. SEGA Rally is part of my gaming heritage. From that first shot on the bootleg sampler to picking up the game in beaties way back in January 96, it's a game I never tire of playing. For me, it's the very soul of the SEGA Saturn. The visuals, the arranged soundtrack, its timeless addictive nature make it a game that every gamer should make the time to play and master. To those who say the game lacks depth, I challenge you to master what it has to offer. Let it get under your skin, let it take hold, and then try telling me that it's only 3.5 minutes of gameplay. And I'll tell you this, it may well only be 3.5 minutes in real time, but take every corner at its apex and shave seconds off your best time, and it is the most exhilarating 3.5 minutes of your life. Okay guys, so there you have it, 10 things that we love about SEGA Rally Championship on the SEGA Saturn. As I say, I do hope you have enjoyed this one. It's been great to make this content because it is a game that is near and dear to myself, having played it for the first time when I was 16 years old and still playing it today at the age of 43. Anyway, if you have enjoyed this video, please give us a like and a subscribe. If you want to find us on Twitter, you can get me at the SEGAholic. You can find Dan at Swooper_D. The podcast account is at Sega Guys. We're back on January 9th with a brand new episode on Radio Sega, as well as YouTube and all of our podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google. You've got the links, you know where to find us. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay retro, and we will see you on the Sega side. Sega!